And I'm all fired up because I got those twin blades that I just showed you on that one jig, and I got a grub on the back of it. Now I slid those twin blades all the way up to the collar and cut the skirt really, really short. And so I'm doing this deal, and I'm burning it and hitting brush piles and stumps and everything, and I'm getting on them. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I ended up catching like 18 pounds the first day. It put me way up there. The second day rolls around, and I go to this one massive brush pile I found, and I'm crashing it up into there, and I feel it just kind of load up. So okay, it hit the limbs. I'm gonna kind of let it dangle and then fall down. And when I lowered my rod like this, it just went out of my hands. And I had boats watching me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that did not just happen. And it was so hot, my hands were sweaty. And I actually, you know, you couldn't jump in. That bass won't let you. I just stared at it, and I couldn't believe it. Everyone's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I got no idea. It just, and so I had to sit down, re-rig and everything, and I fished in the brush pile again. And I hit the brush pile again, and I hit it, and it goes, thunk, and I go, oh. And now I'm sawing this thing. And I had to, this is before I was able to do this lighter braid deal. So to keep it down in the strike zone, and I had to play with the different lines. 15 pound was really the only line I could keep that jig swimming at the right depth. If I went to 17 or 20, it just came up a little too high, and I was working it over the tops of the brush piles. And I had to be down to where it would crash into them. And so I had it on 15 pound, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I'm sawing this thing, and it's a monster. And it goes, snap. Oh. So I sit down, I'm like, how could this be? I mean, I feel like those last two bites could have put me in the lead, you know? And I'm just sitting there scratching my head, and you hear this, and I see my marshal's eyes go, woo, and I just look at him, I'm like, how big was it? And he's like, you don't want to know. He said it was over 8, you know. So I saw Brent Chapman was fishing not too far away, and at the end of the day, you know, we're out there talking, and I got to talking to Brent, and I said, you know, you ought to at least, I'm not going to make the top 12. You might want to just come check this spot out. And he did, and he thanked me, and I really appreciate it because he won the tournament. But it was cool, you know. He caught them differently, but the way I was fishing, you know, and that's the thing about fishing tournaments. I mean, you should always keep that mindset that there's at least 5 different techniques that can win any tournament you fish. And I think a lot of people start chasing what someone else is doing, and I think that's really the wrong approach to going into a tournament. I think you need to go out there and figure out what works best for you. And for me, I think a big part, I'd say 50% of the tournaments I fish is either a frog or a swim jig of some sort. I mean, that's half of the tournaments I fish, but that's because that's what I know best. And you know, I have a lot of confidence in doing both. So swim jigging is my alternative to frog fishing. Or I find my fish that I want to fish with a frog with a swim jig just because I can cover so much more water so much faster. I mean, I can put my trolling motor on like 60 to 80, and I can just go burning down the bank. And you know, I might have to pull my trolling motor up, run around people just to keep going, but just so I can kind of get a feel for the lake. And then, you know, I may slow down and fish it with a frog and everything else once I find an isolated area that I think's got the right fish in it. One of the key things to think about that when you do cover a lot of water at a fast pace is now you're, you know, I've always heard the phrase, fish slow, fast. But I fish fast, fast. And so that's where it gets kind of confusing, because if you're going to fish slow, fast, that means you're taking your boat, you're sitting on like a point or something, and you're working a bait on that same deal. And that's good, that's great if you find that wad of fish to fish. But I'm more like just covering around and moving. And the key to doing that and being successful doing that is not to be one of those trolling motor stop and go people. If you're doing this a lot, all you're doing is disturbing the entire area. So you've got to get a comfort of how fast you're moving the boat to how fast you can fish. Once you can find out that pace, I mean, sometimes I'm fishing at 60% all day, and I don't miss a beat.
The information Bass University provides isn't your basic run-of-the-mill fishing video. This is specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly.